Hi everyone, I'm Samantha Lazar. I'm the Curator of Academic Programming here at the HOP. Thanks for tuning into HOP at Home tonight. You're about to see Cartography, which is an incredible piece of new theater. It's created by an ensemble, and it's rooted in interviews with young refugees. Now, it was supposed to be at the HOP live back in the spring, but the pandemic had other plans, so we're excited to finally bring it to you now in this form. Immediately after the show, co-creators Christopher Myers and Kaneza Schaal are going to hop onto a Zoom call to take your questions in a live Q&A. The link for that Zoom is below in the YouTube description, and it will also be in the chat. We hope you'll join us for that. For now, enjoy the show.
Nari gusinzira iyaba we
يلا تنام يذبح لك طير الحمام روح يا حمام لا تصدق نضحك عريمة لا تنام ريمة الحندقة شعرك أشقر ومنقى ويلي بيحبك بيبوسك واللي بعدك شو بيترقى
No llores, mi niña, no llores, mi amor, no llores, pedazo de mi corazón. No llores, mi niña, cabeza de ayote. Si no te dormís, te come el coyote. No llores, mi niña. Hari indirimbo mama wanje yandirimbiraga ngiye kuryama. Ubu sinibuka amagambo yayo. Si ngombwa. N'ubundi sindi buryame.
في تهليلة كانت تغني لي إياها أمي قبل ما أنام بس ماني متذكر كلماتها وأصلاً مو ضروري أتذكر لأنه ما حنام.
Hay una canción de cuna que mi mamá cantaba. No me recuerdo las palabras, no las necesito. No voy a dormir.
That is a lullaby my mother used to sing. I cannot remember the words right now. I don't need them anyways. I won't be sleeping. this where the line starts?
Depends. What do you mean where it starts?
Like, where is the beginning of the line?
My line started a few months ago.
When mine started, I was in bed, asleep. The walls were shaking.
My parents sat us down and told us why it was a good time for us to go.
It was the first time I ever packed a bag.
They told me what I should say if anyone stopped me.
Plenty of people stopped me.
I hid money inside my shoe.
I had never been on a boat before,
Seen snow before.
Slept outside before.
missed breakfast before.
I had never missed home before.
My line started there too, I guess. Unknown, a little scared, but...
You can tell where people come from by how they wait in a line. The less people have, the closer the line becomes until you meet the people who have nothing, who stand so close they begin to overlap.
But what?
This is the place we're supposed to be now, right?
Inshallah, Habibti,
Now,
this is the
I
place.
guess.
Did I miss anything?
The man with the suit came. He showed us where all the forms went.
More forms, always with the forms.
You see, a great society is made out of forms. I want to use the bathroom. Do you have the right piece of paper?
Funny guy.
So what did he say?
We have to use pen. If we need an interpreter, they can try and find one, but no guarantees.
Did he say what the forms were for?
He gave a little speech, weird little speech. He'd practiced the speech.
Okay there, everyone. You're all gonna have to fill out these papers, basically.
Why is everything always basically with these people? Nothing has been basic since I left home.
Basically, these papers are gonna tell us where you've been, what you've been doing, what or who you're bringing with you, and all the information we're gonna need to make an informed decision about your case.
Then he takes a few steps towards the door, adjusts his pants, and
Why do
turns
you have
back.
to tell us he adjusted his pants?
Because he did, like he was getting ready to do some heavy lifting. And then he turns around and says, it's like if you were inviting someone to your house. If you had a house, it'd be the same thing. You'd want to know what they were doing in your neighborhood, how long they expected to stay, whose house they were in before, ooh, and if they were cool when they were there. And they want you to pay $160 for the privilege of telling you this information and call it a filing fee. Just exactly what I did back home. Bienvenida, stranger. Here's our Fanta and also, ooh, some tear gas. Do you want to use the bathroom? Don't forget the forms.
Funny again. She's trying to hear what's needed. What did he say?
Some more things about pens and translators and his house and taking care of his house. And then he finished off with, oh, we're happy to have you here. We just need to know a few things, a few details. All you have to do is tell us what brought you here.
I was walking in a forest.
On a rocky shoreline.
The voices outside were speaking French. Maybe some were Spanish, but we couldn't see anything.
I have seen Macedonia on the map, and they say we... But I was asleep.
We waited in Alexandria for 3 months.
There are so many kittens on the island.
There are no signs on the water. I couldn't tell you
A map is a thing to tell you where you are going.
where you have been.
Where you are right now.
A map is a drawing on a piece of paper that tells you where safety is.
A map is a blue dot on a cell phone screen.
A map is a rumor you heard that there is a man who sits in the park wearing a red hat. He can get you papers.
Really?
A map is having a face that looks like the photo on the temporary passport you bought with all your money from the man with the red hat.
A map is having a face that doesn't arouse suspicion.
Or a smile that makes a policeman overlook you this time.
A map is knowing all the right answers to put in the form at the border.
A map is having a story that impresses people. I want to be a doctor.
A map is all the different papers you will need, you will fill out tests.
Paper is the most important thing. I keep it in a plastic bag inside the pocket of my backpack, dry and safe, even when I am not. Everywhere we go, men in uniform stop and ask me for paper. Money folded into palms of hands, vaccination records. Yes, I went to high school. See, there is my father's name. Please, can you call this number for me? I know my passport has expired. So has my country. If I had a visa, that piece of paper would be stronger than all the others, and I would hold it in front of me like an umbrella. But better to keep it in a plastic bag, to keep it dry and safe.
A map is a plastic bag that keeps all the other maps.
I once had a map hand-drawn in ink that is now washed away. Just a blur of what I wanted.
A map is every time you can say to someone where you want to go.
I have an uncle who drives a taxi. He can get you anywhere you need. After all, he got himself to the city and became a taxi driver, and there was no map for that.
A map is when your face looks like the faces of the people you are talking to, even when your accent doesn't.
A map is a skill. Do you think Mo Farah would be British if he couldn't run so fast, so fast?
Weren't his parents born in British Somaliland?
Don't make it complicated.
The British made it complicated.
Nibjo.
Somebody told me football is a religion here. The players are their gods. But sometimes they're calling the football players monkeys. Balotelli was crying when they threw bananas. I cannot play as well as them. I am no god. I wonder what they will call me.
Is sadness a map?
When people say it's women or children, that always seems to open hearts.
Open hearts are a map, and rare.
I have a full deck of SIM cards. I plug each of them into my phone and talk to a different country. Each one is a gamble, a lottery ticket to a friendly voice.
I keep all my papers in my phone, pictures of passports and driver's licenses.
I have the Bible on my phone.
God could tell you where to go. God got me this far.
I grew up with holy books. Old men carried them to worship. Here, the only holy books are passports, and I don't know if I want the heaven inside those pages.
Maybe the only map I need is the Lord.
And an immigration officer who believes in the same Lord you do.
My dreams are my maps. Everywhere I want to go, I dreamed of first.
And so you dreamed of a gray immigration office and an endless line?
Y'all need better dreams.
I had a dream on the boat when it was just us and we couldn't see land. It was the thin blue line of the horizon pressing against the sky. And I imagined that the rest of the world had fallen away. And soon, all of Europe would come swimming towards our boat, and they would try to push us out. And we would ask them each in turn for their papers to join us on the orange raft in the middle of the blue water.
I have been so many kinds of lost since I left.
Lost in customs.
In faces, in forests, on water.
I've been lost climbing trains and under tarps.
I've been lost in the holds of a cargo truck.
Lost in hunger, in drought.
In cities.
I have been more kinds of lost than I knew.
Every kind of loss needs a map.
I have been keeping a list of my debts. I owe 17 to the neighbor whose sneakers I borrowed. She won't be needing them, but still. I owe the man who told me that the water would carry me if I let it. I owe the breath in 16 people's lungs who took turns blowing into a raft in between whispers. I owe the gold and silver blankets they gave us when we reached the shores when for a moment I was royalty. I owe every one of my uncles who scraped together stories to use at each and every border. I owe my mother for the food she prepared. It only lasted a day, but it will feed me for so much longer. I owe every stranger who smiled at me when I was wearing second-hand clothes. I thought for a moment you had recognized the shirt I was wearing as once yours, and that was almost as warm as home.
It isn't there anymore, I said. What isn't there anymore, she asked. Jess, I replied, knowing that whatever she could name, I would be right.
There are so many kinds of soap here. I cannot count the number of them. You have soap for washing hands and soap for washing faces. You have soap for washing hair and soap for washing plates. You have soap for washing bodies and soap for washing floors. You have soap for washing clothes. How many more things must you have to need this much soap for them? And how dirty must your things be? I imagine giving some of this soap to my grandmother. She wouldn't know what to do, but she would do it cleanly.
My grandmother was a map.
And a clock.
If it was 4 p.m., she was watching stories.
She was in our living room, in our village, in our country,
Watching her stories in an old pink robe that was as soft as inside a coat.
here.
So we knew when and where we were back then, when the television broadcast such things.
In this time of great struggle for all of us, with the challenges and terror, it is time for us to come together, to show those who would stand against us that together no one can stand against us, the freedom people, the people who understand community and togetherness and love. We will not be ruled by fear. We will not be told who we can be. We will not break into pieces. We will stand together!
Sí, podemos!
Not you.
Quiero vivir en una telenovela, como las que vemos del Líbano y Brasil y Corea.
I want to live in a soap opera, like the kinds we see from Lebanon, Brazil, and Korea. I want to have long hair and revelations. I want my relatives to come back from the dead wearing disguises. And I want to have lovers and confusion and background music. When I go there, I want to live in a half apartment and never go to the bathroom. I want to have a job that I never go to and eat by candlelight. And I want to hire translators to speak in English over my regular voice because everyone hates subtitles.
It is strange, the things we hold on to, like the memories of television shows.
Or old pink robes.
The things we use to remember when and where and how.
Why I keep these keys, I cannot tell you. The doors they belong to are long gone.
Before we left, my best friend gave me some money.
We all took money with us. Liras, dollars, dirhams, something.
But what my best friend gave me wasn't worth anything.
And why?
He said he wanted me to owe him something, so I would be sure to see him again.
Hey, look at you, Justin Bieber.
I only got a haircut.
An American haircut?
A haircut can't be American or anything else, really.
That is just what an American would say.
Besides, isn't Justin Bieber Canadian?
Canadian, American, I forget. You Americans are so sensitive about these things.
Dancing is the first language you lose when you come here. Then you forget how to be polite. Then you forget how to speak to your elders. Then you forget that you will find another job. Then you forget your degree, the one you never use except to surprise the occasional patron in the restaurants where you work. Then you forget taste, and nothing can be too spicy. But if you can find a place to dance with people who love you, you will remember all these languages and learn more.
One day, we will be old, I hope, and make our own maps.
And give them to some young and sweet and desperate people.
And help them build their homes on our fading memories.
And they'll draw their maps over ours.
And it will be beautiful.
The first time I was crossing a wilderness, staying as close to the dark as I could, I was with others, the kind of family you make when you are running. And there was only a little moon in the sky, enough to see our breaths like steam from a kettle. And there were stars, bright spots against the blue-black skies, so many stars that as we climbed the hill, they began to fall and stick to our clothes and eyelashes. I had never seen the stars fall before. They are cold and will melt on your tongue.
There are astronauts, yes?
Yes,
Do they have maps?
I don't know.
Or do they make it up as they go along?
The blankets that they give you when you land on the beaches, the gold and silver ones, they were developed by NASA, you know, for space travel. To keep the light and the heat in when the astronauts are floating in the endless night sky. The space shuttles, the landing pods, are really very small. All the crew fits together tight as a jigsaw puzzle. They must cling to the spacecraft. A little bubble of atmosphere, of heat, of sound. You know that if they were to leave the little pocket of air, if they were to slip over to the side into the night, they wouldn't even be able to scream. After our nights on the raft, in the endless ocean, I think that NASA was happy to give us their blankets. Because maybe they know better than others do.
information about my parents, and then a summary of why I am seeking asylum.
How many pages do they want?
Not pages. The blue box is maybe this big.
And they want a story in that space?
100,000 years ago, there were these two clans, and there were these two brothers, and they got into a fight.
People say that where there is a desert used to be a place where you could farm. And so, all the people who used to be farmers, they moved into the cities.
My mother was a writer, and she wrote for the newspaper. Everyone would read her writing, until one day when she wrote the wrong thing, which wasn't a wrong thing, just said some things that were right about the wrong guy.
There's this guy, and he's giving out roses. And he's in a house with maybe 20 ladies, but you see he's only got 19 roses. And so each week he gets one less rose than there are ladies. And in the end, one of the ladies, the last lady to get a rose, she gets to marry him.
And that's it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more stuff that happens, like intrigue and stuff. And oh, the ladies are interesting. One of them is real ambitious. She's got like 15 college degrees and was in the Olympics.
Olympics?
But for one of those sports that isn't really a sport, like trampoline or something.
And that's the one he marries.
No, that's part of the intrigue and the behind-the-back talking.
Which one does he marry?
Probably the blonde one, the one who's always laughing at his jokes.
Isn't it always that way?
Do you know a tomato cost $5 back home? $5 for one raggedy tomato. There's this thing called an embargo because there are government people doing government-type things. And although I have nothing to do with this, it basically means a tomato is $5.
I feel for you.
No, really, think about it. If a tomato costs $5, what does a school book cost? A house? We were poor to begin with. I don't even know what the word is for what we are now.
I've been hungry my whole life.
So they want a story about how we got to this point.
About these kids.
If I want to start it in the middle, I can. This kid washes up on the shores of this island, and no one knows anything about him. He's maybe forgotten a little some of the things about himself.
Does he have ID?
This is before they had IDs and stuff, when people just asked who you were, and that was that.
So you just walked up to people and introduced yourself, and everyone was okay with that?
Don't get stuck on the details.
I'm just saying, I can't just walk into almost anywhere and say, hey, my name is Jane Doe. I'm just going to have a seat right here and read my book.
Have you tried it? Okay, I guess you have. Either way, this kid wakes up in a pile of leaves on the shore.
A pile of leaves.
Do you want to hear the story or not?
I guess so, and I guess I've fallen asleep in worse. I ever tell you about the car that didn't have an engine?
Number one, yes. And number two, I'm telling a story.
Right, pile of leaves.
So, as this kid is trying to find home, all this stuff is happening. Like, each place he goes to, crazy things happen.
Like what?
Everything, like all the things.
He's in the woods, and he runs into some drug addicts who take his shoes.
Like, he finds himself working as a cleaner in this weird club in Macedonia, and he's not allowed to hear the music or even dance to it, even though he could probably dance all these people into the floor.
Or like someone is supposed to help him find home, but in fact, it's a trap.
Like, he fell off the side of a boat, and there's this life vest that's just there, like the water just gave it to him.
Yes, stuff like that. You sure you want me to keep telling the story?
This story is crazy, please.
One time, he and his friends run into this policeman who had one eye.
A city police or a state police?
I don't know, a policeman of some sort.
What did he do when they asked for ID?
He said his name was Nobody.
And what did the policeman say?
Well, you got to remember, this is before IDs and papers, so the cop asks his friends for help. He says, hey, I met nobody on the street. You guys heard anything? And they say, heard anything about who? And he says, nobody. And then they look at him like he was crazy and say, no, we didn't hear anything about nobody. Holler if you meet somebody, or even anyone.
And he had no idea.
Did he ever get back home?
He did.
But what?
Well, he got home, but people didn't recognize him, didn't know who he was.
But then he said, right?
Not right away. And besides that, things were complicated.
Complicated how?
Like, well, things had gone to ruin while he was gone. All new people moved in, lots of rough dudes, fighting. It was a different world than the one he'd left.
Isn't it always that way?
This kid, the one who woke up in a pile of leaves, who didn't know who he was, he had a son.
But you said he was a kid himself.
I meant kid, like this kid over here.
Oh, no kid like baby, kid like person.
So you said he had a kid, but he hadn't been home in years?
So, the kid, the son kid, not the dude kid, doesn't know his dad. Never really did.
Oh, I know about that. Like, your dad is a ghost and everyone is talking about him, but you don't know him.
Exactly.
So when he comes home, you're like, hey, this is my dad, everyone. But behind your back, everyone is putting dad in quotes.
Right. And they're talking all kinds of stuff about what his dad was doing all those years when he was away.
That's gotta be hard.
What's worse than that? While everyone is walking around talking about how bad of a father this guy was, he was still thinking of his friends.
Friends? Which friends? You said he washed up on a pile of leaves. There weren't any friends.
Okay, by the time he washed up on the shore and woke up in a pile of leaves, there weren't any friends. But there were plenty of friends before that. Remember, I started the story in the middle.
So what happened to the friends?
Oh, they had it rough. Some got addicted to drugs. Some got hurt or imprisoned. A bunch drowned when they ran into a storm on the Mediterranean.
Damn, so dude who washed up on the pile of leaves was the lucky one.
Yeah, I guess. It's funny how what lucky is changes depending on the rest of what's happened. In the end, after he got home and reunited with his family, he looked back on all those years that he was lost and the friends that he'd lost.
I know about that.
What do you mean? You washed up on a pile of leaves?
No, I mean, if you check my Facebook, I have a lot of friends that are not here anymore.
I have a few of those. I send them messages on Messenger sometimes. If they ever responded, can you imagine?
Okay, I wasn't going to tell you this part, but this guy, sometime during when he was lost, he found an abandoned internet cafe.
Oh, is this going to get scary?
Maybe. He found an abandoned internet cafe, and he messaged all his friends who'd passed away to see if they knew anything about how to get home.
Why didn't he just message his live friends? Eh?
I don't know. It's just not how the story goes.
I hope when I die, someone erases my Facebook page.
What about Instagram and WhatsApp?
Oh, keep those open, because if I send a picture from wherever I go when I die, it'll be amazing.
Don't send me any pictures from there. I don't want any WhatsApps from the great beyond.
How long did this kid wander about until he made a home happen?
It was about 10 years.
Dios. So he really wasn't a kid anymore.
I don't know that he was a kid when he started, but yeah, it was a long time.
Did he ever think to himself, you know what? Here I am on this island, and it's not home, but it's all right here.
And the sun is shining, and there are mangoes or whatever, and might as well stay.
Of course he did. We all do that sometime. But you know home when you get there.
And if you're not there, you're always trying to get back.
True.
need in these waiting rooms? A comment box.
What?
That's stupid.
Like how? Explain it to me.
I've been to maybe 7 borders now, and they're all different, and maybe if you could leave a little comment, they could make some improvements.
To the man who pretended to be a border agent in plain clothes and asked for a bribe, that was not a very nice thing to do.
To the guy selling maps in the forest when there wasn't enough cell phone service to find our way, thank you. But could you have the maps printed in our language?
To every national doctor who gave me a physical, please warm up your hands and the thing you use to listen to our hearts before you do anything else.
Just like that.
Diseases?
War.
That doesn't count.
People are very poor.
Not that.
They're also hungry.
Also not that.
What do these people count as a disease?
It wouldn't all be complaints. Maybe there'd be a few thank yous. I know I have some thank yous, like thank you to every conversation with every fellow traveler who told me what was next, or just cheered me up a bit.
You know they're just going to get everyone who wrote on the comment cards and put them on the first plane back home. Nobody likes complainers.
I don't think the Swedish turn people away for making a comment or for complaining a little. I went there, and when they had me in the waiting room, I asked them to turn up the heat, and they did.
Oh, so why are you still not there, eh? In Sweden? Oh.
What's a family member?
Really?
I mean, what counts as a family member?
If you put cat down as family member, they are definitely not going to let you in.
I don't know. They really like their pets here. Let them sleep in the same bed with them and everything.
That's true.
I have a cousin who's like a brother to me. Not like a brother, is a brother. His parents died and we were raised side by side, sharing clothes and food and a mother. So, do I write him as my brother?
Don't they have ways to check those things, and if they find out?
He probably needs asylum more than I do.
Look, if you do say it and then they don't take you, what good are you doing him then?
There should be a space on the form for cousin who is like a brother.
If they want to get to know us, they're going to need a lot more spaces on those forms. Hello, everyone. Hello? Hi, I'm Malaika. If you ask my uncles and aunts where we come from, they will tell you that years and years ago, we came from Egypt, that we had cattle, and that we were nomads, because in every story of our past, we have cattle. My people have cattle dances even. We stretch our arms as wide as the horns, and no one can imagine a past in which they are poor. If you ask my mother, she will tell you that the airlines provided good work, that she could see the world, and that she wore uniforms the color of the ocean. If you ask her, she will tell you that she wondered what it would be like if she had finished school, if she might have been one of the angry passengers asking for more peanuts on the Air France flight. She will tell you that every time she flew and every child she took care of on those long trips with the extra desserts and blankets made her think a little of me waiting for her at home, wondering if any of the planes passing overhead held her. She will tell you that every time she pinned those souvenir wings onto those airplane children, she thought about the wings she wanted to give me so that I could fly wherever I wanted, and so that I knew that I was supposed to be on planes and go places. If you ask my mother's father, he will look at you sternly. You see, he had escaped many times worlds that fell apart, and so built for himself this kind of safety, this kind of order. He was an army to himself in those days. When he spoke, people listened. And when he told my mother that he would kill her if she were ever pregnant out of wedlock, oh, he meant it. She ran away in the 11th grade with me inside her. But if you ask him now, he will tell you how she escaped another world falling apart. This genocide like he did, but this time in a truck with a red cross on its side. If you ask me, I will tell you that it is because I can act, Because I listen and because I can move people and build on all the ones who we have asked before, who pinned golden wings to me, who built worlds that wouldn't fall apart so easily. If you ask me, I will tell you that it is because when I act, I share the script with my mother and she reads it and asks, Malaika, why do you have to kiss this or that person on screen? I share it, this acting, with all those who we have asked before, and try just a little bit to use the wings that they have given me.
Van Wert, Ohio, is a small place with a small imagination. And there are, as everywhere, some lovely people, but it's small. And it didn't imagine me or my family, but we were there. So I used to run away. I used to run away a lot, to places where I could imagine myself, to Hyrule, to save Princess Zelda. You may know her. To the various gyms where I tried to catch them all. I ran into comic books and books and years worth of video games to press play on my imagination and see how far I could go. I invented worlds where I did not have my own. And every summer we went to Damascus, and I invented that world too, where I could speak the language of my family, that to this day I speak when I'm on the phone with my mother. And random people in places like Van Wert's look at me and wonder what kind of plot I am planning when I'm just talking about Thanksgiving or my nieces and nephews. But even there, in Syria, in Damascus, which we call Shem, there are times when I felt not imagined. And maybe none of these worlds could imagine me perfectly, so I continued running away, inventing new worlds for myself. And I realized I come from a long line of inventors like this. My grandfather came from Egypt to Syria and invented for himself a family. And my father came from meager means and invented himself as a surgeon, just the kind of surgeon they needed in a small town in northwest Ohio. And my sister Lana, Allah yarhamha, she invented herself as a radio personality in Atlanta with lots of makeup and Instagram followers. And I don't think that my grandparents or my parents ever could have imagined her, or me. But they only had themselves to blame, starting us on this road of invention. And all of this invention, this imagination, it takes work and sacrifice. It takes a toll to invent yourself anew each morning. It's taken tolls on them. And sometimes people will imagine what your life should be, or what they wish it was, or who you should love. And maybe they're just filling in the gaps, the things they wish they had invented for themselves. But you keep on inventing worlds for yourself. You invent New York and acting classes. You invent marching in parades and finding love. And you invent talking on this stage right now about people who invented themselves and paid prices for that invention, and Egypt, and Shem. And maybe one day, you'll invent an acting school in Syria, and my sister Lina's daughter, Dalia, who I can already tell is an actor, an inventor, she'll get together with other young people, and they'll tell stories like this one, about generations of people who imagined themselves into being. Just like a video game I started playing years ago in Van Wert, Ohio, and haven't yet stopped, just to see how far I could go.
My father built a fence around our house from things he'd found at his various jobs. It floated a few feet in the air like it was protecting our small home from any bad thing that was 2 feet tall to 6 feet tall. Each morning, my sister and I would tear that fence down, and then he would have built it back up again by the time we got home from school, and then we would tear it down again. I wondered what he thought he was protecting with this fence. We didn't have much. A father who was good-looking and looking for work, a mother who cleaned houses and still does, us 3 kids. But it certainly got us in the habit of seeing where fences were and tearing them down. My sister, Idalia, me, Janice Isolina, and my baby brother with the curly hair, Dylan. It's like our names were this migration in themselves. Idalia, El Salvador, Janice Isolina, somewhere in between, and Dylan, which should maybe belong to a blonde surfer dude from California. But our family was built over fences. My mother and father and Theo drove to the United States in a red truck, over 2,000 miles. And when they got to the border and applied for asylee status because of all the violence back home, they were told they had to leave that red truck behind. They did. They weren't going to let the love of a red truck or the memories of that time together or the paperwork to apply for residency or anything else get in the way of them crossing to where they needed to be. Not that there weren't fences after that. There are all kinds of fences. I remember once I was with my dad and he said something to a white woman, perhaps something had fallen from her pocket or some other small kindness. And he looked at me and said, "White people pretend they don't hear when I talk." And that was a kind of fence. And money, or rather, when you don't have money, that's a kind of fence. But at each fence, my siblings and I will somehow find a way through or around. My sister, she's a humanitarian. She travels the world helping people who've been affected by awful things. There was this natural disaster in Sierra Leone. The earth had swallowed people and houses, and my big sister was there, and my mom and I even went to visit because when you're dealing with such things, you might want nothing more than people who know what fences are to help you build things, tear some things down. Once I was in Tabasco, Mexico, helping some of the more recent arrivals, people whose experiences with fences is much more recent than my own. And the strangest thing was that the other people who were there to help couldn't tell what side of the fence I belong on. To tell you the truth, sometimes I don't know what side of the fence I belong on. My mother, she's sweet. She watches her children travel the world, and I know she wishes we were closer to her, closer to the fences, even those invisible ones. You know, we've never met the children of the families she works for, even after all of these years and Ivy League colleges and hand-me-down clothes from them. Some fences are very strong. But my mom doesn't stress about us being far away. She and our dad made sure that we were good at tearing down fences. As she says, "No les puedo cortar las alitas." I would never want to cut your wings. And accents, and sexuality, and money, and death, and alcohol, and politics, and all of these things, they're all fences. But we can tear them down, and we won't let them stop us because our parents gave us wings so we can use them.
You ask my grandmother where we come from. She will tell you that Jesus himself walked amongst these cedar trees on these hills. And before that, Ishtar. And she will tell you stories on stories on stories, and you feel like you know everything. And only after some time will you realize that she hadn't said anything about herself. If you ask my grandfather, he will tell you how they asked him to leave his home. and that it would only be a few hours. And that was in 1947, and the hours haven't finished yet. And in the meantime, he built a whole other life. He became a pediatric surgeon and helped a lot of little kids. And sometimes, when he helped a child whose family couldn't afford it, he would accept a goat as payment. And my grandmother would ask, "What are we going to do with a goat?" If you ask my mother, she will tell you about those goats. She will tell you about the smell of jasmine and stray cats everywhere, about tight-knit communities and pulling bread up in a basket from the street from the local baker who delivered on a bicycle. And she will tell you about the ocean, how much she loved the ocean. And she will tell you in that way that memories grow more beautiful the further you are away from them. If you ask my aunt, who was too young when she left to remember anything before the war with such fondness, she won't tell you much of anything. There is one story about a grenade cut through the living room, and another about bullets whizzing past her head as she snuck out of the house to play basketball. And maybe her fondness was swallowed, as war so often does. The fighting swallows things: buildings, roads, uncles, friends, memories. And she will ask you, why are you still living in memories? We have to move on. If you ask me, I am building my memories piece by piece. Cedar trees, Jesus and Ishtar, houses left for a few hours many years ago, goats for payment, jasmine, stray cats, and fighting that swallowed family members and memories. If you ask me, I am learning to remember every day. I am learning our language again and struggling to wrap my tongue around the words I want to say to tell my Teta Kozi that I love her a lot and behebbik ktir, in the language that she hears love in the best. And she would smile.
We all have maps. The places that we've come from, where our families have come from, where we are now, this is all just one point on a continuum that started far away and brought us all here together in this theater today, where the long journeys meet, where all of our maps come together. We have shared our maps with you. We are hoping you will share your maps with us. For instance, Malaika, will you talk us through your map?
Sure. My grandfather came from Oman, then moved to Rwanda. But because of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1959, he had to move to Uganda. And then from there, I moved to Egypt, then here to the United States of America.
Wow. Can you all take out your phones? No, really, you can take them out. Can you take out your phones? And when you have it, can you hold it up in the air? Great. Do people have phones? Great. And if you don't have a phone, we will come back to you. So go ahead and put your phone on airplane mode and select the Wi-Fi network called Cartography. You'll want to be on airplane mode. And then Cartography is the network. It might take a minute to connect. Are people connected? If you're connected, can you hold up your phone so I know? Great. Yeah, so while more people are connecting, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do next. You're going to trace the journeys that brought you into this room today. So this could be your own personal story of migration, or your parents, or their parents, your grandparents' parents. And some of us, we don't know where our families came from. So until we can figure out where to put Wakanda on the map, you get to take your best guess. Okay, now go to your web browser and type in map.com, map.com. Nora's there, big yellow block, there's a map. Great, yeah, thank you. Are people connected? Can you hold up your phone? Great, so now there's that map there. Double click to select the countries in your journey. A single click reveals the name. They'll appear on a list. Once you have that list that has all the countries that make up the journey that brought you here into this room today, go ahead and click submit. Yes! Nice. Amazing. Is anyone having any trouble? Yes. Okay, great. Malika, Noor, Victoria's up there. We're going to help you. And if you, for some reason, don't have a phone, or maybe you've already submitted your journey, you can get together, help each other, share phones, help someone who needs some help. Great. Hello. Hi. Is it working? Okay. So double tap. Can you zoom in? Let's see. I don't know if it comes up with it. There you go. Great. And then where did you go after that? Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So this map is the histories of migration of this room. This is all the journeys that brought us into this room today. That is incredible.
Sorry. If you...
Yeah, and then hit submit.
Did they call next?
They did, but I think you already heard that one. What happens after this?
More questions.
All of these questions, all of these borders, every time, they never ask anything real.
Your name?
Do you know how many names I've had? I was 5 years old before I knew that my real name wasn't satellite. They said that when I was born, it looked like I could capture channels from far away.
Forget how many names you've had. What about how many people have my name? If you shout Muhammad at the gate of my village, everyone would turn around. Old men and cats and goats and babies. There is one Ahmad, but he married into the village and everyone in his village, Ahmad.
They always ask if you intend to do something bad. Like you walk up to the border and there's this man in uniform and he asks, "Hey, do you intend to take candy from babies?" Not that I think that there's any of us trying to take baby candy,
But who is going to say yes? I want to steal baby candy you have caught me. I have heard that in your country, your babies are the most easy to take candy from. So...
Yes, I have a house and a family and people who love me and grandparents and memories and generations of love, but I could not resist the allure of your vulnerable babies.
The allure of a job that maybe I can have.
The allure of being a stranger to everything and everyone.
The allure of winters. Yes, it is warm and wonderful where I'm from. Just do people vacation there? But I thought there must be something to this. How do you say? Slush?
Snow, rain, heating bills, the dream.
We could teach you the questions to ask.
What did you call the place you now call home before you had to leave it?
How long will it take before you can call this place home?
Ever.
One day, you might have a kid, and that kid will sometime mess up in school.
One day you might have a kid that messes up in school.
Okay, one of us is going to have a kid that messes up in school. Will you threaten to send them home?
Will you remember home as better than ever it could have been? Will you give that missing as a gift to your children?
My Baba used to say that hunger is the best sauce. Do you know what that means?
Sort of, like when you're hungry, food tastes better.
Will you love this new country like you were hungry for a place to live?
Hungry for a place to live.
Here's a question. You told your friends you would come back home after you made a certain amount of money. How much?
Will home still be there when you make that money?
There is really only one question. How did your world get broken?
When did it happen?
Was it all at once, like falling down a flight of stairs?
Or did it happen in slow motion?
Did the breaking creep over you like grass, or did you look down and underneath you, your entire world was cracks, fractures, bits and pieces under your feet?
I cannot tell you where it started. Perhaps it was in an office in one of these square buildings.
If I were the one asking the questions.
What is the name of the dictator you are running from?
Poverty? Lack of opportunity?
Why do you like your villains to wear gaudy uniforms?
It is so much harder to spot a bad guy when he growls like an empty belly.
Cracks the ground with invisible feet.
Makes deals overseas.
When the desperate circumstance stretches over an ocean and time.
Where I am from, hunger hangs around our necks like jewelry.
I close my eyes and I can still smell the whisper of bullets.
In my dreams, I pose for photos in the rubble of places that used to be.
If I were the one asking the questions, I would ask myself to make a list of all the things that we bring with us that can't be seen.
We carry with us so many things.
Some nightmares and fears.
Some songs.
Talent for dreaming that has taken us this far.
A sense of humor and more stories than anyone has the right to tell.
We have with us all the tools it takes to build the world.
And all the reason to build it better than the ones we've come from.